Welcome to Draw Process, a weekly video series where I draw comic book pages and share my thoughts. And we jump right in with what are the thumbnails right onto the 11 by 17 inch board. We have two small panels in the top left of the soldiers looking at each other, kind of reacting. And then a nice establishing shot. I wanted to bring us back to the big picture. So, and this is a nice moment to do so because there has been a pause where everyone is looking at each other and wondering what's going to happen next. What should we do? And that's why these two panels are up in the top left, and then a nice establishing shot with them on the boat. And then the commander jumps into action, commanding his men basically to prepare to attack. So I've got him center a very short panel, very long but very short. I just need his head, and a word balloon that your eye will go to easily. I even have it breaking the panel border. It's going up out of the panel border so that you'll definitely go to that after this large establishing shot that has no background really. It's full bleed. So he cuts in as the panel cuts in. He literally cuts in with his words. And then we'll have him continue. We'll go from kind of that smaller head that shows a bit of his shoulders to even more of a close-up on his head as he continues his speech. And then we're going to go to a shot that sets up for the action that's going to begin. So I want this last panel to be, you could call it an establishing shot because it's going to show where they are in physical space with each other. But I'm going to have Farah and Sun in the center with the men that are behind them and the men that are in front crowding in on them. So the foreground elements will have the three men in the front and then you'll see them and then the men behind them on the boat. And the men will be getting ready to pull out their swords. So you'll see the pressure is on them. I'm going to go with a low camera angle, again, near the hips. Think like a cowboy shot, a medium shot that shows the hips that you might see in a Western. And so that angle will make the men seem very large and imposing and bring more attention to their swords and their hands. And thanks to the perspective, you'll still see Sun and Farah in a nice size. So I'm going through and refining these loose pencils, and I'm working out the dialogue on the page. I have a loose script of what needs to happen, and then working out the dialogue here on the page. And here's that panel I was just describing. You can see I already have the foundations of the idea in mind as I start to move my pencil. I know that I'm going to have, the men in the foreground seem silhouetted on the focal point, which is on a third to the right here, close to a third. So I know what I'm trying to do and construct, and I start with the most important elements, the commander here on the left and Farah and Sword on the right. Farah and Sun on the right, and then I start adding the other elements. The man on what this is a man's sword and hand on the right of this page. Very large, because I wanted to, create the composition that encloses around our focal point, our figures. They're also near the vanishing point. And then I'm going to find a way to show the men that are behind them a little bit, enough, without breaking their silhouette in awkward ways, their outline. And now you'll be able to see it a lot better because I'm going to refine the pencils and the lighting has improved The shot has improved from here on out in this video. So I've made some changes and corrections that improved the lighting and video quality, but the roughs were all done at one time a few months ago. So that's why at this point it shifts. So I bring this thumbnail out that's on my full 11 by 17 inch board, Bristol board, the day that I'm going to draw, at least one per week. And sometimes I make changes to the initial layouts. And sometimes I'm able to just draw right on top of it and it goes very smoothly. Okay, so that sets up the page, and here I go, bringing it to life, looking at prior pages to see what these characters look like. Roughly speaking, they were background characters. It's not super important. And any other references I need from prior pages of the boat and everything. I prefer to do that. I would rather not have drawings of my environments, of the boat, of the people. I would rather not have separate drawings that I have to make that I just kind of leave on the side that function as reference. For my environments, I don't really want to have a diagram that really, like a map, a blueprint that shows me where things are. I would rather just reference the prior pages. I've got them right next to me in a portfolio or on the webcomic. I pull up the webcomic if I need to double check something. That makes it just much more fluid for me. So the framing of this large establishing shot, the figures are substantially to the left. Maybe they should have been a little more center on the panel, but that's not how I drew it. Definitely, as your eye goes from the first two panels, it's very easily going to go to the grouping of figures there, because they're just below that panel. One of the reasons I stuck with this composition, besides to be quick, is that it seems like the center point, the focus of that panel is off. Like they're to the left, and then there's all this boat to the right with nothing on it. I mean, what is that there for? And I thought that was actually going to be a fine choice, because something is about to happen on that end of the boat that's unexpected. So I wanted to make sure to show that end of the boat anyways, and it doesn't hurt too much that it's given greater prominence on this panel, on this page, since it will become a more important location. Even for this guy's face, I'm just referencing the prior drawings of him to try to keep some consistency to how I drew him. Now, I will say, I became confused at some point looking at prior pages. I thought that there were 3 men with him on this side, and it turns out that there were only 2 most of the time. So this extra head that I just drew in the background, I will have to digitally delete from the art. I'm going to just erase it digitally. Luckily, that's easy to do because it's just there by itself. But I've got to take that out, and also take that guy out on the boat above for consistency. I don't know how I missed that. But again, these thumbnails were done quite a while ago. So when I come back to draw them again, sometimes I don't check the prior pages for those sorts of things, because I'm thinking, I did that last time. But it was corrected. So sometimes there's little things I have to correct, even digitally. Okay, so this weekend, I will have been at Tremendicon. When this video comes out, I'll be on the Sunday, the last day of it. But today it's Friday. It's the first day of the convention. I can't be there for most of today. I just had a little break here to do this voiceover in between my work day. Not really enough time to go up to the convention anyways. And I will be involved with Clever Kaiju at our booth. It's the best setup we've ever had, I think. Just the way it's laid out, the amount of space is wonderful. And it's going to be a good time. And I will be speaking at the Clever Kaiju Showcase. We're going to be sharing about lots of cool stuff. The biggest one is Seeing Red, an art book that today launches pre-orders at Tremendicon. The first day for pre-orders on this art book that will have lots of artists from our community involved in it. So the work is all done. Everyone's drawings are done. Most of the pages are laid out and ready to go. We're just going to do pre-orders to get the printing, make that affordable for us, and then we'll order them and get them shipped out to everyone. So very exciting there. But we'll get to share about that and everything else we've been doing, like the labs classes we've done and still have available for instruction and learning and illustration, painting, comic art. And I will be doing a workshop on Saturday morning about drawing comic books. And so I'm not quite sure what I want to do with that yet, because I kind of want to see like who shows up and what skill level they are. I definitely want to make it more accessible than maybe I've ever done. But that might vary depending on who's there. So I'll talk to the audience and see. But the idea is that I'm going to draw pages right there in front of them and just talk about drawing comics. How would one get into doing that? And make that as accessible as possible. And so I'll draw a page right there in front of them on camera. So for the big screen so everyone can see it. But I was thinking about that, and I do stand by my personal journey into comics as a good way to do it. My background in film and cinematography, taking some classes in that, working in student films and stuff, I became, and being a fan of film, I became very interested in the editing and cinematography and using different camera angles and stuff when you're capturing things on camera, like actors in on set. They're actually there. It's actually 3-dimensional, and you move the camera around to capture it. And you edit from shot to shot. That is how I approached drawing comic books. A lot of the literature, let's say, instruction on drawing comics talks about it and leaves that out. Like that's not part of what people think about. You spend years learning to draw. You're drawing figures on paper. Maybe you learn to draw perspective as well. And then when it comes to drawing comics, it's like, okay, make a smaller head, make a bigger head, smaller figure, bigger figure. Establishing shot, we might use some language that's from film, but there's some sense that it's about the positioning of elements that you're going to draw. I don't know, even a design focus, positioning elements in order to create a design to the page where you want the eye to go. Those are good things to do, but if you don't picture a 3-dimensional space and position your camera around, then it's going. You might get stuck. You might not develop as quickly. Because when I was drawing my comics at first, I had to learn how to draw everything at any camera angle that was needed. I wasn't limited by my drawing skill because I wasn't thinking about drawings. I was thinking about what's actually there at that, and what is the best angle to capture this action for this panel, for this shot. And then I have to execute it. Even if it's just a bunch of scribbles, like if I need a fist to be coming right at the camera, right towards you, that's how I know that I have to draw a hand that large with particular perspective on it, particular foreshortening. And it may start out as scribbles and really kind of rough, but then if I need reference, I get reference. If I just got to figure out how that looks, maybe take my own pictures or look at my own hand, I gotta draw it. And so I'm not starting with drawing first. I'm starting with it being real in my mind. And that's different than starting with, I don't know, a set of rules of like, get varying the sizes of your figures, having an establishing shot each page, organizing the elements. If someone's at a desk, this might be some way that someone would think about it. You've got you got the boss at the desk. And so they're like, okay, so we're going to have the desk here, and it's, it needs to be, I'm going to put it in about this position, and that's kind of a rectangular shape. So we'll throw that shape here, make it flat maybe. And then we'll put the figure above it, behind it. And so he'll be here. And now what else needs to be in this room? Well, there might be curtains. There might be some pictures on the wall. Let's throw some rectangles up for that. That is far removed from the reality of a three-dimensional space that you're going to have to draw at different angles perhaps too. And so you might limit yourself. You might not think about these other camera angles. You might not think about drawing all the different challenging things too, because you're just going to put in what you imagine needs to be there in that spot on your paper. It's hard to explain, but it's a little removed from trying to convey realism, like a real three-dimensional space, and you'll limit yourself. Now, I think you should study comic books and sequential art, and you should adapt that into your development. But if you start with that, then it might be a slower trajectory on developing your ability to capture what's on camera and to draw things at all these different angles and everything. So that's my opinion, but for a beginner, I would recommend it. I mean, you could even watch a movie, hit pause every time there's like a new shot, draw that scene as a comic. And you'll go, oh, I see what they did here. The camera's here. They're capturing this. They used that background element here to kind of silhouette the figure. You'll see what they did. Pick something that's, beautiful, a pretty film. I don't know, Blade Runner or something with some dynamic lighting, perhaps. But you'll see what they did to capture this in a space. And yes, I get that it's not always a real three-dimensional space in these movies either, but take that and turn it into a comic and draw those shots out and learn from it. And then when you do your comics, you can do similar. Like you have these ideas of how to use the environment in the shot to choose a camera angle that will give you the what you need in that shot. It's quite different than, I don't know, drawing a room in perspective and putting figures in it and calling that an establishing shot. This is, okay, what's the physical space I have to work with, and where can I position the camera, and how can I set up the set, you know? I might want some dramatic lighting. I'm going to need some light. You know, what did they do in that intro scene in Blade Runner with the ceiling fan going, and, you know, there's smoke from the cigarettes and stuff. There's interesting lighting from the windows. Like, put that in your comic. You're not just learning how to draw the different elements that you might want to put in. You're thinking, like, what makes interesting shots. That's how I need to set up my scenes. There's a lot to learn from film, is my point. And it is a way to challenge yourself, to draw things you wouldn't otherwise draw, improve your cinematography, your shots, and your drawing skill by having to draw things you wouldn't otherwise do. Yeah, so I will probably recommend that tomorrow at this workshop, and maybe I'll even do that. Maybe I'll pick a movie scene and break it down. So here in my inking, we have, again, I'm moving the camera around on the set, on the boat. So I know where the sun is, I know where the lighting is, and it's going to change. You know, it's just right. The lighting is on the guy's left. It's on his right side, but it's on the left hand of the page. And the last panel, now it's on the right. Now I need to take some liberties with that. In this panel, these figures in the foreground, I'm going to put a lot of shadow on them. And they're gonna appear almost like they're in shadow, like they're silhouetted. But the truth is, the sun is about where the camera is. It's slightly to the right here, and so they're pretty well lit unless they're in the shadow of something else. I don't think there's anything in the way that would create the shadow. Maybe this guy in the middle, he might be somewhat in the shadow of the guy on the right that we just see the hands of. Maybe you could justify that. But I didn't ink them in a way where they're just solidly in shadow. I've just done a high level of rendering, and I still have the light source on their right where it should be. There's more shadow on the left side. And I'm trying to create the effect of silhouetting them onto the page. Now with colors, I can also separate. I do pretty simple colors though, so my only real option to separate them would be to put them in shadow, like cool shadow colors. When they're literally in the sunlight right here, that's quite a bit of liberty to take. It's fine to do that. A lot of people will do that, and it can be effective. I'm careful with that. The further you bend reality, you bend what's there in this three-dimensional space, the further you get from conveying the sense of reality to the reader, to the viewer. So I don't do too much of that. Kind of, if Sun is about to punch one of these guys, if I turn it into this like colorful comic book, bam, he hits him, and a big word balloon, energy lines, color background. If I remove the boat they're on, if I remove everything around it, sure, it can be a loud statement. It can have a nice punch to it, but it's not going to feel grounded in the space they're in. It takes away some of something. It pulls you out of the moment, and maybe that's what you want to do. But I like my action to feel grounded in the moment, for it to feel like it even gives maybe weight to the the contact of the punch. It's not just an abstract idea of a punch, but you feel the weight of it and the contact of it when you can see the environment, when you can see the way the body's moving in reaction to the punch that's realistic instead of something overly dramatic. That makes the experience for the reader, to me, more visceral. It makes it more embodied. They can feel it in their gut. They can feel it in their body, because you're creating drawings that, these visuals, these camera angles and shots that you're making it feel more embodied, more grounded, more real. Now, I'm not talking about realism. I'm not talking about making things look precisely how they look in real life, because that can be the uncanny valley effect. It's not so good to do that. That's something else. And you'll see that how I'm going through with this guy especially being so much in the foreground, how much shadow can I add? He's kind of in the shadow here, because he's in the shadow of his body on his left here. But how much shadow can I add? So I'm going back and adding more rendering into the inks until I'm happy with the result. I took a picture on my phone of the dialogue I chose. Before I go in and erase everything, I'm just going to go in with a little whiteout and ink pen to tidy it up a bit, finalize it, and then I color it and put in the lettering in Clip Studio. And we are getting pretty close to the end. We're at least about to hit this final, I can't remember how many pages it is at this moment, but it's the final climactic scene is about to happen. And that's it. The finished page. And there's the bottom half. I went with a white sky here to separate that panel there from the bottom panel. So you'll see there's a way that I let the color of the water turn into like a lighter color for the sky and then turn into white. That separates the panels nicely. That's it. See you next week.